Hi, I'm Susan. I'm from World Peaceful, and I am going to read your poem called Politics or Democracy Inspired by the United States. Now, before I talk, what I like to do is to just take a deep breath and become still. What this does is it allows the thought process to slow down. And I like to connect into the oneness of who we really are before I can explore this type of topic. So when I think of politics, what I see is people manoeuvring, people seeking to gain advantage, people seeking to win. When I think of democracy, I think of an agora, a Greek agora, where people come together as a collective to think, discuss, debate various issues. Expanding out from that, I see democracy as the whole society, the whole collective, having a say in how life moves forward, and the fact that they're affected by the configuration of a society, they do have a right to their opinion about it. There is a difference between speaking and being heard. Sometimes it can look as if people are given a voice, and there may well be an answer through correspondence. My question is, are people really seriously listening? I've had the fortunate opportunity to be a market analyst in my life, which meant I have drafted up surveys to talk with a very wide range of people, say a sample size of 500 people per survey. And I've had to write questions in such a way that 500 people are going to understand it the same way. I've had to draft it in such a way that I don't lead them, that the questions are not double-barreled, there's two questions in one. Typically there should be just one clear question at a time. We drafted in such a way that the clearest opinion can come through. And then if we've used numbers to collate, to code various possible outcomes, we'll get frequencies and work out percentages on that, and we'll get an idea of what on average people are thinking, what the majority are thinking. There might be very large minorities that we have a look at as well. But what I really loved about doing market research was that I very faithfully took down exactly what people said, and then I put it into categories and had a look at similarities and differences and what have you. But I really loved honouring the voice of people. For me, that was probably the only experience of democracy I've truly had, in that I've had the opportunity to at least look at a cross-section of people and really faithfully take down what they're saying and report back what people are wanting. And I like the idea of the majority, having a say over what's going on. I also think in certain questions that we put, people in minorities need to have a say as well, because they may have special needs. So there are times when the majority shouldn't rule and the minority should be heard. Now, this listening to people is absolutely critical. We don't do it enough, particularly in Western society. Many of us, like me, I guess now, are talking. Am I really listening? Because I listen to myself. But you know what I mean. I'm just playing there. To truly hear other people is a great gift. And we learn from those who differ from us the most. They are what I would consider our greatest teachers. But what tends to happen is people tend to suppress those they don't want to hear. They may amplify some voices, and I'm referring to the media here, rather than others. We tend to favour fame over what is called the average person, of which there is no such thing. No person is average. Every person is extraordinary, in my opinion. We articulate differently. Just because a person's educated and another one's not doesn't mean the one who's not is less intelligent. They're actually amazing people everywhere, and there's lots of different types of intelligence. And it doesn't necessarily have to be cognitive. It can be emotional intelligence. It can be common sense is a great form of intelligence. So, what we value in society is often amplified by those who have the dominant voices in society. What I personally would love to see is a true democracy arise where all voices are valued, and that includes children as well. The elderly are not redundant because they're no longer economically viable, as some may think. They're completely viable in many ways in terms of the wisdom they've accumulated over their lives. The role they play as grandparents, very, very important in a society where children are growing up quite often either on their own in front of these computers, iPads, where they may not have that feeling of family. We need to honour and value every single person in our society, no matter who they are. To me, democracy listens to all voices, and there is no preference as to who should be heard over anyone else. So turning to the US elections, to be honest with you, I have hardly even looked at it. Now, I know in the United States, it's on every channel and there's no getting away from it if you're watching the media. I'm here in Australia, and of course we are affected very much by US politics, as is many countries around the world. There's also the issue of the US as the world's policeman, the fact that they have nuclear weapons, and the power of a president. It's a very complicated situation over in the United States, and of course values have been spread across the world in terms of material capitalism and what have you. I personally see true leadership as humble. I was looking over some of my previous radio programs that I've done and having a listen to some in particular. And one interview I had was with a gentleman who had actually met Gandhi. It was really nice to re-listen. And he was involved in international relations, and he was commentating on Australian politics at that time, which is quite a few years ago now. But what he noted in Western society was the focus on a job rather than a cause. He said he remembered Carew in India and Gandhi when he was young. He was part of the Indian National Congress youth leadership teams. And he noted that the politicians of that time were driven by a cause, and they put it before everything. They put it before their family. They put it before their careers. They saw the cause as the most important thing. For them, it had meaning and it had purpose in life. And he contrasted that with Western politics. And he just saw it far emptier in this part of the world. He didn't see it in terms of serving the society. So he had a lot of concerns. He explained to me that when he sat with Gandhi, he felt this enormous presence. And he said he was, in his view, one with God. He had this incredible integrated personality and a charisma and an energy around him. And when I spoke to him, he started to cry as he was so inspired by Gandhi. Throughout the interview, which will be on my website if you want to have a look at it, it's www.worldpeaceful.com. In that particular interview, he states a week prior to Gandhi's assassination, he had a dream that Gandhi died. So he tuned in, if you like, to what happened to this great leader. And he brought a whole country together. I mean, he was incredibly humble. He believed that truth is God and God is truth. And of course, truth is the big question, isn't it? People are asking themselves, who do we believe? What if we don't believe in any of them? And I certainly am hearing more voices speaking up about the integrity and the values of politicians, not just here in my country and in the United States, but right across the world. There's a lot of reflection going on in societies about the type of leaders they want. I mean, I even overheard a lady yesterday speaking to someone in a cafe saying that she was very concerned with their values. I think you should be concerned. I think we do need to start to look at values. But another person said to me that politicians have armour. They're used to protecting themselves, and that's because of the vitriol that's projected at them as well. So there's also the other side of the fence. From a political point of view, they also have to be seen to be, and if they make a mistake, they're not forgiven. They're also very much hated. If you do polling on, the things that people don't like in society, politicians are pretty much top of the list. So we, the people across the world, have to decide what sort of politics or democracy we want. And really, it does reflect us. So what we see in our world is a reflection of ourselves. And if we don't choose to speak up, if we sit back as armchair critics, then we get the people in many respects that we deserve. So it's much harder for society to look at itself and say, well, why aren't I standing up? Why aren't I saying something? Why aren't I running for politics? Why don't I put forward a new way, another way? So I would just leave that thought with people. You can be the change you wish to see in the world. Now, before I go to my poem, another terrific person whom I'm very impressed by is John F. Kennedy, as a former US president. And I'm going to read you out a quote that has been quoted by him. I don't think he wrote it, but I do think he quoted it, so he believed it. And it goes, when power leads man towards arrogance, poetry reminds him of his limitations. When power narrows the area of man's concern, poetry reminds him of the richness and diversity of existence. When power corrupts, poetry cleanses. And I would just say, because I'm a woman, I would just say that it's not just man, of course, it's woman as well. I say that with great intent because I am starting to awaken to the fact that, in truth, women have been seen differently to men, and we are living in a society in the image of men. And I say that with great love and respect to men listening to this. But we do need to start to allow all voices to surface. And of course, in the US election, Hillary Clinton is a woman. And this would be, if she wins the election, be the first time a woman has been president in the United States. Certainly in Australia, we had Julia Gillard. She did suffer a lot of pressure. And some women would say misogyny here. I think for women, it's often very difficult to be taken seriously. And we do think somewhat differently, but quite often we have to present in the same way as men in order to be respected, rather than the differences between us respected. But that's another topic that could be spoken in an agora of democracy. But first, let's go to my poem, which is called Politics or Democracy. The world we live in is politics, and the politician seeks influence, for he is a popularist. She is taking advantage of ignorance. Do you believe what you hear? Is this truth or dare? Are opinions judgment? Do we judge opinions? When many voices are speaking, who is really listening? Politics or democracy is the choice of our time, for one deceives, the other receives. Worldviews are couched in popularist language, but what is the language of the populace? To be able to stand without taking sides is a skillful art. One is listening and yet comes to no conclusion. For how can one conclude when there is no other side? All stories are told from different perspectives, for each sees a different rationale. And is it rational to reserve judgment? The truth is balanced reason. And is it reasonable to seek the truth? Balancing fact with fiction. Conflict resolution seeks to resolve underlying conflict. There is no right or wrong, weak or strong. There are merely differences. And the art of mediation is to allow each a perspective. Without judgment is to allow expression. Without suppression. For truth has many angles. And who can say who is right? The world is in conflict, where might is right, influence is power, power is utility. But the people are not satisfied, for they are unable to voice their concerns. Democracy must be revived to not be seen to be, but to value the right of all to their opinion, without undue influence, without perseverance. For non-violence is the new creed that will expose greed, when each person is an advocate of justice. Deliberative polling exposes expertise to public opinion. For public forums that are interactive respect democratic rights in his or her own right. For each is an expert in life. Each has insight. Many voices can create foresight, moving us away from the status quo. Democracy hears the voice of the public. Politics seeks to influence the voice. One is lecturing, the other is listening. One is unchallenged, the other unpredictable. For the greatest of ideas emerges when we allow for spontaneity. For the pearl can only emerge from the sand when friction reshapes and contours a new landscape. And this is the civilized dialogue that leads by example. For only by example can we lead. For politics and religion will no longer create conflict and tension when all cards are on the table. We are all in this together. And there are no more winning hands, for it is to understand that how we play the game matters most when we all win. So thank you very much for listening. Until next time, be happy, keep smiling. And I will say, know that your happy destiny is unavoidable despite appearances in the world. There are very many good people doing great things around the planet. It's just that the media is not always picking up on it. That's why I don't watch the media anymore. It looks like I am on the media. I'm making the media now. So if you want to know more about my work, just go to www.worldpeaceful.com. And in the spirit of Gandhi tonight, be the change you wish to see in the world, and it will be. Thanks for listening and watching. Bye.